Hello and welcome to the conversation on News Central TV. I am Rita Omodia. On this program, we get to discuss trending political stories around the African continent. Now, on today's program, we will be looking at alleged clampdown and harassment of female members of parliament by the Ugandan police force. Also on the program, we will be discussing the outcome of the APC governorship primaries in Kogi State after aggrieved aspirants approached the court to nullify the election that produced Ahmed Ododo as the candidate of the party. We'll be having these discussions after this break. Stay with us. Now we begin in Uganda, where a protest over what has been perceived as police brutality in Uganda has led to the arrest of 11 female opposition lawmakers. It was reported that the lawmakers were detained just outside the parliament buildings in the capital, Kampala, as they prepared to march to the Ministry of Internal Affairs, where they intended to hand over a protest note to the minister. One of the lawmakers, Joyce Bagala, spoke about some of the women's grievances, highlighting an incident where one of her colleagues was allegedly roughed up by police during a recent Women's Day event. Reacting to the allegations that the officers had used excessive force on the women, the police spokesperson, Luke Owoyesigyire, denied the allegations and accused the lawmakers of resisting arrest and injuring some police officers. Now, join us for this conversation. We have Freddie David Agesa as a private investigator. He's joining us from Uganda in Kampala, and we also have Eric Kiyama, a journalist who is also joining us from Kampala. Gentlemen, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much. Of course, my name is Freddie David Agesa.
Yeah.
I'm a private investigator, and of course, I welcome all the panelists, and I'm ready to roll.
Thank you for joining us in the conversation. So, Freddie, can you take us through the incident that led to the arrest of these female lawmakers, and why exactly were they arrested?
Of course, whatever I've been seeing, 11 female lawmakers, I think they believe I think they had a grievance, claiming that sometimes the police and others, mainly the police, has been interfering with their constituency duties, and in the process, I think they felt like they are being possibly hunted, or because maybe because they are in the opposition, and I think they wanted to show their grievances. They wanted to raise it as an issue of national importance, because at the end of the day, if they did not perform in their own constituencies, it would turn out to be fatal for their political careers. So in the process, I think there was that type of mobilization, and as we are trying to march, of course, police swung into action, and a scaffold issued, and several arrests went on. So the question is, of course, protesting is not that kind of deep crime whereby we need that much deployment. Besides, if these guys are moving and protesting and they are not destroying property, what do we fear? Why does the police become so aggressive? All these are questions to discuss, and of course, we may also want to know if this is the best way to do. And besides that, of course, on the back of our mind, we say, do they have genuine reasons? Have they been harassed? Because in Africa, sometimes when you see things happening, you wonder who is bewitching Africa, who is bewitching Ugandans, who is bewitching, because some of these high-handed behaviors have been seen in several other institutions. So what we are saying was the arrests. These are ladies, of course. Being ladies, there is a way we believe that these are our mothers, and there is a way they should be handled. And besides that, if we are to build a government, or if we are to build a nation that creates that has tolerance in their own minds, we have to sometimes listen to even those we believe are not working for the government. So we are not going to build a kind of one-sided government where everything has to please the government. There are times when things will come out and they're not pleasing. Of course, the government is a parent and is supposed to be a great listener. The question is, did anybody, more especially the forces, because if we see our Right Honorable Deputy Speaker condemning the acts and the situations, then definitely you know that the Parliament was not consulted about how best this situation could have been handled. Because
now, Freddie, I'm going to interrupt you a bit because I want to get things straight of things happening in Uganda, because the police mentioned the fact that the protests were illegal. So specifically in Uganda, I mean, for a group to go into protest, are they supposed to notify the police, or who are they supposed to notify that would make the police say that these protests were illegal? What is the process for a protest in Uganda?
Of course, in a protest, like if there's a march, there is that situation of getting permission. You need to be cleared, because so that possibly, if you want to show your disgruntlement, you need to be cleared and then guided. But there are situations also where a human being can sit down to kind of demonstrate a grievance, or he can do anything. Yes, they could have flouted some kind of procedures, but as a growing nation, was the reaction? The question goes around the reaction. Was the reaction bigger? I mean, indicate that we are civilized? Of course, there is that situation that maybe they could have requested for permission, but yes, as much as we may say they did not, still, that does not justify the actions of our police.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Freddie. We're looking at both the reactions and what could actually make the police have done such a thing. So, Eric, also, I want your take on this, because the parliamentarians accuse the police of making use of excessive force. So they came to protest about the police brutality, and they were also brutalized by the police. But the police accuse the lawmakers of resisting arrest and injuring some police officers. This is the account from the police officers. So for you, Eric, do you agree that excessive force was meted out on these women, and what are your thoughts about the situation?
I didn't share the last bit of your question. Pardon me on that.
Okay, we're just looking at the situation there. Do you agree that excessive force was meted out on these women? Because on one side, the women talked about police brutality. On the other side, the police said that they injured some of their police officers. So what are your thoughts on this particular situation?
Definitely, there was strong force that was used when arresting these police officers. Sorry, when arresting the women. This incident, the first incident happened in March, towards the end of March, when Joyce Bagala, the female representative for Michana, was she had organized an event to commemorate World Women's Day. But it was stopped. Of course, there was tear gas and there was some kind of beating. But then again, that didn't receive a lot of media play. But the most recent one involved a woman MP representing Vuma Island. And in Uganda, we have been having photos on social media of that female MP showing her beaten up and all that. So she ended up in the hospital. Police in Uganda has consistently done this. Yeah, it has also done this not only to the women that we have just seen, but even to these other groups, you know. So the beating up of women wasn't really called for, because these women were protesting. They were protesting against grievances that are all being seen by the world. For instance, after the woman was beaten up, there was a protest by other MPs, including Joyce Bagala, and then they ended up being arrested and being beaten up and all that, which wasn't good for the image of the country.
Okay, so Eric, looking at this situation of police brutality, because you've mentioned it over and over again, and even Freddie mentioned it also, is it just an attack on the opposition or women, or is it a general thing that happens with police officers in Uganda?
It's a general thing that is happening, not only to women. If youth, for instance, there was a protest by pre-medical intern doctors. They were protesting because they wanted they wanted government, or rather Minister of Health, to deploy them in different hospitals so that they start their internship. Then when they protested, they were brutally manhandled by police. There are many incidences I can cite, including opposition figures, the likes of Owoyesigyire and others. It appears now it's becoming normal for police to act like this. What is surprising is that some of these police officers think what they are doing is right, which isn't. If you talk to some of them, they'll proudly tell you, yes, let's go and beat them up, not knowing that what they are doing is actually wrong. So it's a general thing that has been happening, although this happened in a month when we're supposed to be celebrating women. Okay, the most recent one is not a women month, but still, we have just left March, a month when we're celebrating women. It's really absurd.
Okay, now, Freddie, looking at this police brutality still, there have been accusations that these police officers and security agencies have been sponsored by the government, specifically President Yoweri Museveni, against the opposition. How true are these allegations?
Of course, these are operational officers. Yes, the president may not want the demonstration, but he, as an officer or as the team that executes, the teams that handles order, they should know how to tailor a product or how to deal with a situation so that it does not implicate government into a situation of abuse. Because these guys are trained. They are trained to control, or they are trained even to look at a situation and deal with it accordingly in a professional manner. So to me, I still believe that the blame goes to the officers because, yes, some of them want to be a bit, I think they want to be a bit, they get a bit high-handed because possibly they believe that that's the only way they can be seen and promoted. But I wouldn't see, I've seen the mind of President Museveni concerning this. There are times when you remember he was blaming the police and said, we have bad weapons within the police. Because in a situation like this, you have to protect the image of the state by behaving in a way that does not degrade the standards of security and the standards of perception of law and order. So to me, I still believe that I think the individual commanders just sometimes get excited and they go in overdrive, and in the process they make us look as that as this.
And has there been any response from the government to this incident and their demands? And what has the government done concerning all of this? Because you said it's probably bad eggs, the police force. What has the government done to make sure that such things do not occur again?
Of course, like you have seen, the Right Honorable Deputy Speaker of Parliament has condemned it. The Internal Affairs Minister has also condemned, and of course, action will be taken. There is no way. This is a nation for all of us, and we cannot allow that to be people to make our nation look dirty. So I'm sure there are procedures that are going to follow to make sure that the mistakes and the errantism and the excitement of some officers is handled and minimized.
Okay, Eric, I want your other opinion on all of this, because while we're still looking at probably maybe bad eggs from the police force, this has been going on, and there are still accusations against President Yoweri Museveni attacking the opposition. So do you feel that the government also has a part to blame, apart from the bad eggs that might possibly be in the police officers? Because you also need people who are encouraging you to do these things if such a situation has been going on continuously. Eric, please.
Pardon me the question. I didn't hear you very well.
Okay, I'm saying that the part of the government in all of this, would you say that the government also has a part to blame in the continuous police brutality that we have been witnessing in Uganda?
Definitely, the government is to blame because it appears the government isn't doing enough to maybe try to change the mindset of these police officers, These police officers really work under terrible conditions. They are paid poorly. Some of them, if you to go to the places where they stay, they are not really good houses. So some of them end up putting their frustrations on the people, So government really hasn't bothered to look into this situation. And it also appears that the head of state, President Museveni, it works for him. If these people are brutal towards people who are protesting against certain things that are really are going wrong in the country, and they are being put down by brutally arresting them, beating them, and all that. The president, it appears, looks at it as something that works for him, since it has helped him keep himself in power. So definitely, yeah, the government is to blame.
And I'm going to go on the part, still with you, Eric, on the part of the government having benefits with this police brutality. Why is there a perceived feeling that President Yoweri Museveni is going against the opposition in Uganda?
Why is there a feeling that what?
Why is there a perceived feeling that President Yoweri Museveni is going against the opposition in Uganda?
He's going against the opposition. Oh, yes. First of all, President Museveni is right now is Uganda's longest serving president. And one of the reasons why he has been president for all this time is because of the security forces, that is the army and the police. So he has used violence throughout all these years to keep himself in power. So pretty much that would explain why he is always going after the opposition, because I think he looks at them as people who are coming after his job. And this is something that he doesn't take for granted. So he ends up using all the force through the security forces to put them down.
And what about you, Fedi, on the issue of President Yoweri Museveni going against the opposition? What are your opinions concerning that? Because these lawmakers were also opposition and female lawmakers in the parliamentary. So what has been your position on the perceived feeling that President Yoweri Museveni is going against the opposition?
Of course, what I would love to say here is that I've seen the president kind of persuading and involving opposition at all levels, because as we talk now, the parliament is being led by teams of people who are in opposition. So to me, I still believe that we have people like we have several in systems that are very strategic. You may find that sometimes some opposition kind of mentality comes into, and someone wants the government looked at it, and then in the process, situations like we are having now comes into play. So of course that's an intelligence matter. I wouldn't say the president now going to that level of haunting individual lady members. Of course, they may have some kind of complaints here and there because of the some of the ambitious RDCs and some of ambitious police, security operatives. But of course, I've seen him. I've seen a big situation whereby he has bothered so much to involve the opposition. Now, in circumstances like this, I wouldn't want to zero this situation to the president himself. Of course, he's the head of state and he takes the political blame when police does things like this. But what we are saying is we have very good examples of situations where the president has tried his level best to involve opposition, so that there is that kind of coalition and possibly listening to each other as government. Yes, there may be issues here and there, but it will not be a principle that he's there haunting opposition. If anybody is haunting opposition, there are areas where...
So you're trying to say that President Yoweri Museveni has not been hunting or is not against the opposition in Uganda. Is that what you're trying to say?
Exactly.
There have been no arrests on oppositions in Uganda.
Upset on that. Yes, politically, he has to, when we're in campaigns, he has to defend his own organization, NRM. But at the same time, I've not seen a well-designed program of saying, let's crush opposition, because several opposition members are friendly to government. Several opposition members have been handled here and there. But also you have to know is that there are areas where the opposition designs a situation of attack, and then in backwards they get their own into the system. Of course, we wouldn't say the whole police or the whole army is NRM, and then in the process their own sometimes attack them, so that the government can be looked at to be very dirty.
Okay, now, Eric, while we're looking at all of this, I want to also know the situation on ground at the moment. Have the female lawmakers been released? Have their demands been met? Or what exactly is the government's response to all of this?
Now, government hasn't really given a solid response besides the usual response that we have received from, that is the police spokesperson. Maybe the other development is that the chairperson of the Uganda Human Rights Commission issued a statement rather, condemning the police actions, but then she later on came out on TV. She was being interviewed on NTV, and she said some of the members on the commission are threatening her with guns and all that. So Uganda Human Rights Commission is a body that was instituted by government to handle all human rights cases, but it also finds itself in a difficult situation where, even though it condemns government actions, for instance, police, it's not listened to and it's not taken seriously. So there hasn't been really much reaction. The members of parliament, of course, they must be out by now, but there hasn't really been anything that has been made from their side, and I don't think anything will be made. Basically, Ugandans will just move on, and another thing of the sort will also happen over and over again.
And how do you feel about this finally, and what do you think should be done to make sure that such a thing does not occur again? How do you feel about the government's slow response to all of this?
Of course, I really feel terrible. I believe the government should have tried to put the security forces in order. First of all, and one of the ways this can be done is improving their welfare. They are really paid badly and they live in terrible conditions, which I think also leads them to act the way that they are acting. So government really needs to do a lot. It needs really to do a lot, also training them on how to handle people in such situations. Yeah, it's a really terrible thing that has been happening over and over again for now 30 years or more and more years to come. So it's really terrible.
All right, thank you so much. Serious situation going on in Uganda. On one side, we saw Friday David Agesa saying that it's mostly due to the bad eggs in the police force. Meanwhile, there are still accusations against Ugandan government of hunting down the opposition. But thank you so much, Eric Kiyama, for joining us on this conversation. And also Friday David Agesa, a private investigator who joined us. Both of them joined us from Kampala for joining on this conversation. Thank you so much.